Sonic Frontiers is a game, one would have you believe, but I see it as more of a state of affairs, an acknowledgement of existence. It's been out for a year now, and as with many Sonic games, it's already been exhausted as a broader discussion. There are many videos that have provided comprehensive outlooks, which I found agreeable, to the point where I never felt the need to share my own, but there's just one thing about this game that I've never found peace with. While I was intent on leaving my input at the fanbase's behavior beforehand, I must admit I've been staying late at the forensics lab, observing this key element. I was a little cautious about having a knee-jerk reaction to a new release, almost hoping that someone else would make this video for me. But as we reach the final horizon, it becomes clear that we're all being invited to reflect on the game once more. In accordance, I have to finally ask, the story in Sonic Frontiers was pretty bad, right? No, I don't just think it was disappointing. I think there's pretty alarming stuff about it that carries some foreboding implications about Sonic storytelling, in a way. And hey, if it sounds silly to be concerned about the writing in something made for kids, I just want to say, this is heralded as acclaimed comic writer Ian Flynn's debut in the official games. I highly doubt that he worked his way up here just to make kids stuff that no one should care about. Part of respecting the work he contributed is seriously talking about it. At the same time, I don't wish to exalt myself by asserting that I care about this game more than other people. I just felt like I was in a parallel universe upon completing the game. I could not believe the disdain I had for its story compared to the community's relative ambivalence at absolute worst. And today, I want to tear down the walls between those dimensions. I've got a lot to talk about, believe me, so I guess we'll start at the beginning. And there's already a problem. A problem with the establishing shot. Look at that, it looks like SFM with a couple of light sources just wobbling around with the camera. That's not the Starfall Islands, that's just TF2 Sawmill. The pre-rendered 30 FPS cutscene, the textures, the reused Forces Eggman model, oh yeah. We're looking at some next-gen Sonic over here. Oh, it begins. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Coming up, Starfall Islands. How exciting!
Yes, very interesting. Oh, don't forget to stop by the church and drop off Lorraine's sweater. Oh, God, no, okay, I'm not gonna stop for every little offense, but wow, this game is presented like garbage. And now, I know that I'm talking about the story today, but we're not reading a novel. This stuff matters. Think of your favorite Sonic intro. Think of how awesome it was to boot up that new game and let the vibe speak for itself. It doesn't always have to be so extravagant, could even be as simple as just playing the first act. It's your very first impression of the adventure beyond the title screen. But here, holy jeez, some of the worst is on full display the moment you press start. It's so bad that you're not even paying attention to what's actually going on, as evidenced by the fact that I have not talked about what's going on. This particular game, though, is trying to be more immersive, more atmospheric than your usual Sonic the Hedgehog. You wouldn't know it from the opening cutscenes, but it'll soon dawn on you just how jarring this is when you enter the game proper. And it's not some anecdote about how Sonic games shouldn't look dire or moody, it's that there's no commitment to said idea with these Forces animatronics waddling about, among other things. Frankly, I think the notion of how these games should look is a result of the franchise continuously botching new art directions and eventually regressing into stale uniformity instead of embracing variety. I don't care for it. I'd make a point about how sad it is that Sonic games look 2 console generations behind, but I actually don't need to. Frontiers does that all by itself with the opening stage. A blocky Green Hill recreation of the Windmill Isle tutorial, which isn't even favorably comparable. I can't believe I just said that sentence out loud, but I digress. So, I don't think the game starts very strong at all. There's meant to be some mystery, some intrigue as you begin your trek across Kronos Island. The music is subdued, the sky is dim, and Sonic's friends are nowhere to be found. But the game has such little grasp on how to create immersion that this falls flat on its face. Cutscenes will never organically transition to gameplay, ever, and the tutorial is littered with start and stop disruptions, even if you're playing on New Game Plus like I am right now. The refreshing, ambient tone that Sonic Frontiers wants to convey is completely kneecapped out the gate, and when you see the sweeping landscape shot up ahead, you know that it's not going to get better. Ideally, a captivating tone would be able to carry even the most simple storyline, but in what's supposed to be the biggest Sonic game yet, that's lost in a sea of cascading foliage and flickering Mario Maker blocks. When I think of the most memorable Sonic stories, maybe I wouldn't say they're the best written of all time, they're not gonna make the professors quake, but that's okay. Typically, people latch onto these because the games will exude some kind of irresistible aura, and that doesn't just come from nothing at all. Someone had to make that art. There's almost always an intentionality behind it. So, without that aura, without that feeling, all the emphasis begins to fall on the dialogue. The product backs itself into a corner. Luckily, the dialogue is the thing that a lot of us were excited about even after the pre-release footage painted an ugly picture on the surface. Even in response to a story trailer which showed very little about the actual story, people could not wait to see what Ian Flynn was cooking up, especially in comparison to the last few games. So yeah, the visuals are gross, but let's check out the actual writing. Since we're taking things quite a bit slower than usual on the Starfall Islands, this leaves a lot of room for conversation. Amy is tethered to Kronos, while Tails is stuck on one of the neighboring islands. In other words, Sonic is formulaically trapped on a deserted island, leaving no one to talk to but one friend at any given time. It's rather forward, but yes, that means we're going to be individually bonding with these characters. Sonic Frontiers being a longer game means that we'll really have the opportunity to sit down and look at these icons as full-fledged people. As close as they can be, of course. Sure, Sonic will be doing most of the legwork, as he has been for years, but we finally have a chance to see something done very personally with these neglected individuals, and maybe, through that understanding, Sonic will be able to unlock the secrets of the Starfall Islands. For our first character study, Amy Rose.
Sonic, are you alright?
Me? You're the one who's only half here.
I feel fine, but that energy that was holding me prisoner went into you.
I've been infused with weird zappy stuff before.
Yeah. Okay, this seems appropriate so far, but I don't know. Something feels a little off.
How you feeling, Amy? I mean, what's it like being all ghosty?
Honestly, I don't feel that different since you helped clear my mind. I guess it feels kind of, detached?
What is this? Why does it look like this?
It's beautiful here, but there's a loneliness here. The land feels sad and empty.
Yeah, I got the same feeling. And I think it's tied to the ruins, weird robots, and other stuff we've encountered.
Yep. Yeah, I could have probably...
And you never know how many new routes you may discover.
True. That's definitely correct. Alright, I see one problem. Talking to Amy is boring. Oh, now don't get it twisted. I'm not just referring to the composition of these PS1 cutscenes. I'm actually talking about the script, the written words themselves, regardless of interaction type. Sure, it's varied, and sure, it's in character. We'll get to that in a minute. But neither of those things necessarily equal engaging. Now, not every conversation you have with someone in real life will be stimulating, I understand, but in Sonic Frontiers, the dialogue doesn't feel like an exchange. This is apparent before even knowing where the story wants to go. Under the guise of natural commentary and reflection, Sonic will walk up to Amy, state something fairly obvious, they'll both exposit for a bit, and then Sonic will throw in something cute to make sure you remember that it's Sonic talking. Visual storytelling, if there could be any at all, is virtually non-existent because Sonic and Amy have pretty much nothing to talk about, so they remind each other that, yeah, the grass sure is green. Nothing they say to each other even shows you anything about their dynamic other than the fact that they are friends. Sonic goes fast. Amy cares for people. It's a whole bunch of facts listed in clean succession. It feels really awkward. Normally in a game like this, you would have the characters walk around with each other and give input as they go through the environment. And since Amy is like a cyber ghost, it should be pretty easy for her to travel with Sonic and actually, go on an adventure with him. But instead, Sonic Frontiers has you collect memory tokens so that you can deposit them into the friend vending machine and be rewarded with this. Also, I'm not just cherry-picking lame optional interactions, this is how you progress in the main story. And in that main story, this explain-y pattern of speech is still present. If we're going to tell a story with these characters, you'd hope that the baseline would be a fun or interesting time exploring an ancient civilization with them, but I just don't think that's the case, at least not now. I guess what matters for a lot of people is that the plot sticks the landing, even if the moment-to-moment scenarios are a little stilted. Kinda like the inverse of how I'm not having my taint lit aflame by the plot of Sonic Heroes, but I don't give a shit because I really enjoy the characters and memories throughout. In either case, context is key, but hey, if Sonic Frontiers has something to say, then maybe that's more important. So what exactly is brought to the table by Amy's chapter of the story? Well, Amy's whole deal is that she wants to help this Coco reunite with their true love. Wait. Coco? Yeah, Coco. Great job, the teacher will never know. Sonic and Amy quickly find that, aside from the killer robots, the only inhabitants of this island are these Coco. Upon helping a mommy Coco find her children, lights shoot up into the sky, revealing an indescribable symbol, and then oh, wow. Gosh, that's pretty bleak. Jeez. Anyway, Sonic and Amy kinda just move on from that, continuing their initial search, and Sonic gets a little worried that they're wasting time escorting babies. He'd rather focus on finding the Chaos Emeralds so that he can take down the island's Titan and find Tails. Of course, it's not like Amy can really do anything to help him with that. She could probably just handle the Coco herself while Sonic takes care of the bigger picture, but whatever, they keep moving. And then, as they draw near the missing Coco, they receive a harrowing vision.
They were reunited, right before the end.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I mean, when I saw this for the first time, I think I felt something. The ancients being depicted as predecessors to chaos, the Coco being revealed as their remnant husks, love and death given significant attention after years where Sonic games shied away from it, and Sonic giving Amy space to recover from what they just saw. Maybe Sonic stories can be serious again. Maybe seeing an intimate couple sharing one final moment before an untimely death will invoke some deeper questions about Amy's affection for Sonic. Knowing that their time on this earth is limited, knowing that they could spend so much of their life together. Perhaps Amy has never tried to have a mature conversation with Sonic about how she feels. And on this post-apocalyptic island where anything could happen, there's nothing left to think about but where you'll be in the end. So, what will Amy take away from this event? And how will Sonic respond?
Hey, still thinking about the Coco?
Yeah, and more. I'm not sure what happened, but I know what I saw. A love that transcended time. I believe in that power. When this is over, I want to share that love with the world, even though it may take us far apart.
I know you'll do great. I want to hear all about it when you come back.
To convey my thoughts on this scene, I've put together a little segment. I hope you like it. Amy Rose was a character that I thought was pretty cool, and it wasn't just me. She's obviously one of the franchise's most popular. I think boiling that down to her being the de facto female isn't very appropriate because it undermines who she could be. I had always figured that the reason for her popularity was fairly simple. She stood out. She made a lasting impression. She's no Princess Peach waiting around in a castle, but she's also not like Lara Croft or something. No. Amy Rose is a joyous, energetic girl who proactively follows her knight in shining armor. Since day one, she's been Sonic's biggest fan. Aw. It was a very unique dynamic in a catalog of other popular fictional pairings, but what really made Amy so likable to me is that, starting in Sonic Adventure, she brought an attitude that could stand up to Sonic's. Through sheer persistence, she's one of the few people who can actually phase him. This would, of course, give her the courage to become a force of her own, wielding a giant hammer and eventually leading a group of friends herself. In the same way that Tails is inspired to become who he is, Amy is inspired by Sonic as well. But unlike Tails, Amy's not part of the team. Sonic doesn't normally hang around her because he clearly enjoys the chase. He also is just that much of a young, free spirit that he's not willing to slow down for a serious relationship. There's no animosity, he'd still call her his friend, it's just kinda their thing. This was also great because it meant you never had to think too hard to get Amy into the story. This sparkly little girl could just show up to a giant military base because she heard Sonic was being held there and wanted to be his hero for a change. It was a juxtaposition. It was fun. Even in some games where I don't think she was handled the best, I'd still enjoy seeing her because she delivered an impulsive yet passionate heart into each story. Over the course of the series, though, Amy's character would receive criticism for being an over-reliant creep, generally speaking. And for the above-listed reasons, I never really co-signed this talking point. For one, and I will say this matter-of-factly, I don't think we should even pretend that this is the same thing as actual real-life stalking and harassment. They're definitely not promoting or downplaying this dangerous, scary concept. I just think Sonic and Amy have a specific one-sided bond that isn't meant to be anything more than cute. And even if not, it's fictional, like many cartoonish behaviors. If Sonic had a problem with it, he would say so. But maybe you don't think it's so much problematic as it is grating, and I can totally understand that. However, another thing that I really enjoyed about Sonic and Amy is that because there was something tangible to build from in the first place, people could kind of engross themselves in the possibilities of where it could lead. There was nothing saying they couldn't get together someday, or that Amy couldn't move on and explore new challenges. But what's important to me is that this could have been a narrative choice. Okay, so now that I've established the value that I see in Amy Rose, let me tell you why this scene does not work in any way. Let's look at this closely. Amy witnesses the dying moments of an ancient and her soulmate after helping that same ancient's lingering spirit relive the event. What she says in response to this, directly to Sonic, who she has feelings for, is, "That was true love. I want to share that love with everybody." What does that even mean? What is she thinking, a statewide polyamory? No. It's quite evident that it's meant to be a canonical statement that Amy will take the love that she has for Sonic and instead apply that to helping people generally. How is that the conclusion she came up with in this context? Also, I like how Sonic's reaction to this is basically, "Nice, good to hear. What a defining character moment." And you might say, well, she didn't actually mention Sonic. She could just be saying she wants to do good things regardless of her feelings for him. Exactly. The most basic connecting tissue between these two characters is not even directly brought up, and in fact, at no point before or after this do either of them remotely imply any sort of romantic tension in this game. Oh, wait, maybe there's this part? Possibly? Gosh. So I guess you could say that it isn't addressing their dynamic at all. Instead, it's genuinely just Amy saying that she's gonna go out there and be a good person. No interpersonal drive, no real correlation to her own life, nah. But if you had any doubt about what the story is intending here, take a listen to this egg memo.
It appears Amy Rose has been dragged into the mix. Clever girl. Tenacious. She's come a long way since being an easy pawn in my schemes to ensnare Sonic. It seems like she had some trouble finding herself. But when you hang around with someone with as big an ego as Sonic, self-identification has to be a challenge.
Hello there, audience. How do you do? This is Dr. Eggman randomly psychoanalyzing teenagers I don't care about. Did you know that Amy Rose from Sonic CD is now a completely independent woman who likes Sonic platonically? That is what I call character growth. Yeah, I think maybe they overreacted just a bit. Though you know what the best part is? This is not even a response to any of her recent portrayals, since they've already been minimizing her affections since Sonic Lost World. And let me tell you, I didn't like it there. Remember what I said about her not being part of the team? Well, Sega's been trying to make her just one of the boys for a decade now with no fanfare, no story. I was cool with it in Sonic Boom because that was a different Amy, but it was so unnatural for me to even think that one day mainline Amy would just decide to keep her feelings on the down low. So perhaps this is just doubling down and creating an arc out of her newer appearances, except she literally was said to help people on a global scale when she thought that Sonic was dead in Sonic Forces, meaning she learns zilch from this experience. No matter which angle you come at it from, this scene does not work, and more importantly, it's not compelling. All it serves to do is dilute the character in the safest, least committed way possible. They've made the mistake of believing that she was not her own capable person before, but now that they've matured her beyond that point, she is a character with no goals. Honestly, her dialogue in this game is so dry, but if you showed it to me with no context, I would not recognize it as Amy. Kinda like how Amy didn't recognize Sonic in Unleashed, and that actually kind of upset him. Or how about when Amy stepped in to defend Sonic from a table-throwing maniac, and Sonic just leaves it to her with gratitude and trust that she can handle herself. Their usual routine was already challenged, showing that it never had to define either of them as people and was just the catalyst for Amy to inspire good in others. Amy was once a go-getter. Now, she's a no-getter. I seriously think she was a more three-dimensional character when she was hyper-focused on Sonic, having a wider pool of social interaction and a stronger sense of belief. I think I've made my case, but if you can tell me what you like about the current Amy Rose, past her having a cute design and being a nice, caring, well-adjusted member of society, I would love to hear it. Because we're at the apex of her identity now, and I cannot list a single moment. But I'm done with that. For now. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman has wound up in cyberspace shortly after hacking into it with his artificial intelligence. And we see here that his mouth doesn't move while he is clearly talking to himself out loud. It's not even like they stylistically cover it with his mustache, it just isn't animated. Dude, come on. I gave this a pass when it was Sonic Adventure 1 on the Sega Dreamcast in 1998, but what is this? So, while Sonic's friends are stuck in trans-dimensional limbo, Eggman is completely stranded, not even able to peek into the outside world. Yes, that's right. The story is framed in such a stupendous way to where the characters are physically prohibited from doing anything at all other than talking. Do I need to say it? Am I really gonna say it? No, I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna put totally unrelated footage on the screen for no apparent reason.
There is no scenario to safely remove you from cyberspace.
Unacceptable. Keep looking. Make it your #1 priority.
Alright. So there actually is one other person Sonic is able to talk to on the Starfall Islands. Enter Sage, Eggman's AI given human form. Somehow. She's the new mysterious character of this game, appearing to be the one who's sending all these ancient robots after Sonic. Although this is made abundantly clear within seconds of their first encounter, Sonic would sooner believe that she's a victim of the island herself and not, the one who's trapping his friends here. Even after getting utterly wrecked by Giganto, he insists on having a candid conversation with her. Narratively, I think this is a problem. Because Sonic just immediately is like, yeah, I'd like to skip to the part where she's one of the good guys, it, of course, means that they're instantly telling you how this multi-hour character arc is going to end. Or at the very least, the game is saying, this is a character arc, pay attention, there's a character arc going on over here. It's very shallow. Until the story gets to the point, Sonic's content with chatting Sage up like it ain't no thing, and these conversations usually go like this. Hey, so, do you want to tell me what's going on? No. Okay, but can't you tell me what's going on? No. Wow, guess you don't want to talk about what's going on, huh? No, go away. Please die. Okay, but I'll be back to check in on you because I just know you're a swell person. I mean, good grief. Yeah, if mowing lawns with Amy wasn't already exciting enough, Sonic and Sage establish a gripping subplot as the only two characters capable of taking action. Since that is the overarching character focus, I'll wait on making a few comments. After all, I am trying to approach this as I would be playing it naturally. But, hey, has anyone else noticed that when you walk up to Sage, her aura plays this stock, bubbling lava sound effect? It's like she's a gross school lunch from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, or something. Oh, man. Okay, focus. One supersonic AMV later, and I am juiced up for this next island. Gotta be transparent, I can't really offer story commentary for the Giganto boss fight, even though it is one of the game's highlights. But I will say, it is kind of funny how Sonic's just like, okay, I'll destroy this giant robot because I was told to by a scary voice in the sky. And then after witnessing a foreboding glimpse of a Titan's pilot, he doesn't even question if it's really the right thing to do. Nah, everything appears to be as it seems here, but that Sage, on the other hand, Well, she's just too much of a marketable plushie to truly have ill intent. As Sonic shrugs off the greater question of what exactly Sage is trying to prevent him from doing, he comes across Knuckles on Ares Island. Yes, Knuckles. He's here. Go watch the epic prequel story on YouTube to find out more. They should really let you unlock these kinds of things in the game itself. I'm thankful that they didn't put crucial story info in supplementary material this time, but still. Make no mistake, Sonic Frontiers Prologue Divergence was friggin' incredible. The atmosphere was on point, scenes were composed with a satisfying confidence, and nothing felt overstated or forced. It was a pretty big surprise after the previous promotional YouTube shorts, which all felt limited by that fact. Never mind my tonal disagreement. This really composed a flattering image for how seriously they might have been taking the story this time around, with near unanimous praise given to how well the character of Knuckles was captured. Huh, you don't say. So how did this translate to the game itself? Yay, don't worry, I'm not gonna go on another diatribe with Knuckles the Echidna here because his portrayal is adequate. Yeah, pretty alright, I think. But I don't know, it still doesn't really do anything for me. Right off the bat, it's pretty clear that this game wants to remind you that Sonic and Knuckles used to be rivals. Instead of Knuckles just being an ignoramus, there's a bit of back and forth. Oh, that's kinda charming. In fact, it really wants to remind you that they're rivals. Like, holy cow, I think we get it. Okay, well, now that you've put a giant spotlight over it, I do kinda have to ask. Do we remember why Sonic and Knuckles even had a rivalry going on? The whole shtick was that Knuckles is a really self-serious kind of guy, and Sonic is the opposite of that. So Knuckles would view Sonic as a sort of troublemaker, while Sonic would view Knuckles as someone who needs to get a clue. But it was the kind of thing where they were generally on good terms, they just had a way of getting on each other's nerves due to conflicting priorities. Maybe a bit of a grudge, too. That's the key, though. It was kinda incidental. Sonic doesn't just see Knuckles and go like, ooh, time to mess with him. That was more Rouge's style. Sonic Frontiers has them constantly mugging at each other for just existing, and that's a little weird. It makes their dynamic more one-note and less interesting to me when every major cutscene needs to include the Sonic and Knuckles quips, even when there's really no reason to.
Nice work, soldiers. Now let's link up with the main force.
Yeah, you make a great supervisor, Knux. Maybe try fighting next time, though.
In fairness, it is giving me some of that personality that I sorely missed on Kronos Island, so yay for that. Actually, I do think it is neat how Knuckles' archaeological know-how is the main subject of the island's optional interactions. Knuckles can deduce that the ancients were probably not of this world and that they settled on Angel Island before even the Echidnas. This is basically as much as he can glean from it, but still, it feels like input that is informed by his character. However, that is also kind of the issue with the Ares Island chapter. While there's definitely stronger subtext than there was for Amy, it only really goes that far. For example, Sonic has now seen with his own eyes what the ancients looked like. You know, they looked like Chaos, the guardian deity of the Master Emerald, the very same being that wiped out Knuckles' ancestors. I think this would be some pretty relevant discussion, but apparently Sonic does not think so. Doesn't address it with Amy, and doesn't even mention it to Knuckles. Instead, when Knuckles is telling Sonic of the visions he had in Cyber Purgatory, Sonic's like, "Whoa, visions? You mean like the visions Tikal gave us in SA1? So, again, clearly the continuity matters here, but not enough to where the plot will actually do anything with it. Here's another example. Sonic gets ambushed by Sage, who fires a laser, which... oh my god. Oh, yo! Knuckles is actually able to do something, holy crap, and...
Whoa! Time out!
Oh, never mind. That's a little too much activity, a little too much action. We can't have that with our protective parent Sonic here. Does anyone else remember the story trailer where Sonic runs over and throws a punch at Sage? What was that? Some Clash of Clans bullshit? I'm not saying I want Sonic to punch a child, but that's also not the thing that's concerning him. Anyway, it's actually Knuckles who tells Sonic that he's too trusting of this evil floating computer program, which is kind of intriguing. It looks like they're going to tell a bit of a reflective story here where Knuckles ends up swapping roles with Sonic. Having been a recurring pawn of deception, maybe Knuckles has grown distrusting, more isolated on the inside despite the numerous friends he's made along the way. He's seen the absolute worst that the world has to offer during his tenure as Resistance Commander, and maybe Sonic hasn't, because he was literally off-planet for most of the war. Perhaps the concept of preventing disaster through his own actions, without anyone's help, has been on his mind lately, only amplified now as he wanders the remains of another society. And maybe Sonic is struggling himself, now wanting to trust everyone he sees because that was what brought the world back when he couldn't do it alone. Nah, I'm just kidding. And none of that stuff is actually in the game. That entire cutscene was completely meaningless to Knuckles' story here, the role swapping being a coincidence, if not just misunderstanding the characters fundamentally. Instead, what happens is that Knuckles claims to see ruins that look exactly like the ones on his island, but they clearly don't because it's just a generic bunker, so the game crudely displays a Sonic 3 and Knuckles screenshot, which isn't even like Hidden Palace or something. The game is so bad at conveying things that it even pulls up the screenshot twice in one cutscene just to make sure you understand the location's importance. Seriously? Knuckles then draws the correlation between his people and the Ancients, feeling kinda bummed that he's alone on Angel Island as the last Echidna. Sonic reminds him that he's not alone, but then this happens.
I'll admit, I do envy your lifestyle. Freedom to go where you want, when you want.
So do it. Get out there and live a little.
Maybe I could. But first I need to be back to normal.
What? Excuse me? Hello? Hey, do you guys remember the last 20 years of games where Knuckles was not guarding the Master Emerald on his island? That was the big meme, right? I didn't dream that up. I even remember the positive reception to the 2-second Knuckles prologue teaser being, wow, we haven't seen Knuckles on his island in 20 years. Oh wait, except for in the Sonic Forces prequel comic, which we said the exact same thing for. I'm starting to see a lot of patterns. Anyway, look, I agree. Knuckles should not be shackled to Angel Island, nor should every story he's in contrive some reason to get him there. I think the issue with it in Heroes was that it just sorta happened with zero explanation directly after 3 major games where the Master Emerald was his entire life. But you know, this limiting situation could have been solved by progressing his story. Something could happen to Knuckles, Angel Island, or the Master Emerald to allow easier integration, and it could also make for a standout event. Sonic Frontiers decides to address this by mentally transferring the audience back in time to the point where they can believe that the last Sonic game was Sonic Adventure 2. Then it offers an explanation for why Knuckles will routinely leave his post. That explanation being because his friend encouraged him to. Development. Like I said, nothing really offensive here, nothing that permanently damages Knuckles as a character, but where's the story? On its own, it's nothing. In the context of the greater series, it doesn't make any sense. It's cool seeing Sonic and Knuckles sit down and have a bro moment, yet I can't help but feel like that should have been earned. Speaking of bonding with family and friends, let's go see how Eggman and Sage are doing. So in the cutscene where Sage attacks Sonic, she refers to Dr. Eggman as Father. And, next thing you know,
Then the robot hit him again.
I look forward to your battle reports once we're home.
Home?
I'll integrate you into my system, give you control of the whole EggNet. I'll have you network all my robots.
Well, that didn't take long, now did it? I'm not joking. This is literally the next cutscene after the previous one where he was all, "Brr, I don't care, just get me out of here, brr." But now, Island number 2, she's his greatest creation ever. I really thought I missed something. I really thought my game glitched out and I just didn't get a cutscene that I was supposed to see, but no. This comes straight out of nowhere.
You'll be a refreshing change of pace from Orbot and Cubot.
They are your creations, like me. That would make them like my brothers?
I suppose so.
I look forward to that.
Okay, let's just put that family subject aside for now. We'll talk about that, we will. I want to know, what did Sage even do that won Eggman's favor? Or yeah, better yet, why does Eggman even have stupid robots in the first place to the point where he's surprised when Sage is supposedly competent? This kind of pokes a hole in the idea of him keeping idiots around just to make him feel smart or keep him company, no?
Sage is performing at peak efficiency. Makes me wonder where I went wrong with Orbot and Cubot.
You see, the more the game tries to contextualize everything, the more these questions pile up. But it clearly wants you to think about them because it keeps presenting them. If something isn't readily apparent in a cutscene, there will usually be some form of addressment in the completely optional and quite missable egg memos. The game has a constant compulsion to justify its own writing or presentation, which, I mean, kinda lampshades that it isn't good.
I can confirm Sonic has made multiple breaches into cyberspace and escaped.
Through raw talent and no shortage of tenacity, I'm sure. Impressive.
You speak of him with respect as often as you curse him. I do not understand.
Oh, I hate that hedgehog. That doesn't change the fact that he is a formidable adversary. I respect him, but I don't have to like him.
Remember what I said earlier about explain writing? Or what I said about characters stating their character traits? Well, this is a prime example. What natural reason was there for Eggman to say that? There was no reason for Eggman to say that. Sage is not the one being spoken to in this cutscene, it is actually you, Timmy or Tammy in the audience, that Eggman is speaking to. To convey the nuance, the depth of his conflict with Sonic, Eggman just lays it all out on the table here for you to dissect. But when I actually do that, I once again see a problem. This read of Eggman's character feels like a reckless extrapolation of one of my favorite scenes in Sonic Adventure 2. In that game, Eggman jettisons Sonic into the vacuum of space and watches him presumably explode in a fireball of glory. Only then does he bid his adversary a heartfelt adieu, finally admitting some kind of admiration when all has been said and done. Classic villain stuff. It elevated Eggman's sense of power by portraying him as a credible and mature opponent, while acting as a graceful smokescreen for him to effectively piss on Sonic's grave. It's all about pride, it's all about that visceral intent. In Sonic Frontiers, though? Nah, who needs any of those emotional stakes? Eggman just thinks about how good of an opponent Sonic is every day, happy to vocalize that fact just so everyone is aware of his personal values. It's cheap. Sure, it's the same principle, but in execution, it is absolutely not the same. It actually subtracts from the depth he had before when it was unsaid or up to interpretation, depicting him as less secure and less human. And all that I'm saying here is put out on the second island. I can only imagine what this hands-on style of writing is leading towards. Oh boy. Okay. The gloves are coming off. because we're heading to Chaos Island.
The spatial anomaly that affected us seems to have left me in a digitized state. But those same energies are manifesting into some worrisome mutations for you.
Those sure are words you said just now.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know, Tails is the smart one. Oh my god, wait, this also happened in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. You guys remember that? Wow, that game is almost 10 years old. So Chaos Island is where the game basically nosedives in quality. Not only does the level design complete its transformation into a bundle of Kishi moments, I'll leave you to figure out what I mean by that, but also it's here where things are starting to make a lot of sense in the narrative department. Let's talk about Tails. Oh lord, here we go. Of all the character assassinations over the years, none are as widely scorned as what befell Miles Tails Prower. Where other characters regressed into lame stereotypes of who they once were, bound to the sidelines, Tails was taken a step further. His very presence would elicit irritation or agony, becoming the immediate definition of an annoying side character, while masquerading as our lovable sidekick from Sonic 2. It was amazing just how whiny and ineffective he was written to be when the blueprints for him to be a badass were already established years ago.
There's no more time. We have to break into the fortress now.
Indeed, this is it! Our last opportunity to bring peace back into the world!
But when the battle ends, we'll have to part with Sonic. I mean this Sonic, won't we?
Oh my god, like every scene with this kid. No doubt, all eyes were on Frontiers to help our man out. I'm sure that there's nowhere for Tails to go but up, so let's see it.
Sonic, do you think I can change?
What?
Did I get the wrong parts?
No, their hero didn't show. They're worried something's happened. It's like how I couldn't handle it after Infinite attacked. One wrong turn and I fall apart.
Oh, hey, I didn't want you to, now hang on a sec.
Sonic, am I a burden to you?
Wow, and how did you come to this well-thought-out concern?
Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
So, we're really just going into this, aren't we?
Dude, relax! You've got brains like Eggman, speed like me, and can fly with your butt.
Did he just look at the camera? So Sonic Frontiers decides to tackle Tails' mishandling very directly. And, many people really like this. Many people really appreciate the formal acknowledgement. I understand. I get it. But let me tell you anyway why I don't like it. To paraphrase what's going on here, the game is, in essence, saying, yes, Tails was an asshat in these games, special mention to Forces, and yes, his writing has been wildly inconsistent, but if you just think about it like everyone having their bad days, it can be like character growth. There, boom, patch that right up. All better now. Except, I don't think it is. In fact, I think you're just making it worse, and I really wish you would just leave it alone. Look, I'm all for embracing the past. I don't like it when media franchises pretend that shitty things don't exist. Believe it or not, I would ideally want Sonic Forces to be contextually relevant, because it's supposed to be a major historical event. But when the character study of Tails in your atmospheric, open zone experience is literally defined by him being a bad character, does that really convey the message you're intending? Are we really supposed to like Tails if all we have to say on him is whether or not he sucks? Instead of telling a new story with Tails that could be remembered for years to come, we've opted to extend his terrible reputation into one more game. Tails could just be written really well, and it would naturally convey that he's moved on from being a bitch baby. Like, you don't have to canonize, to explain everything. I think the audience is perfectly capable of filling in the gaps here, just as they tried to be when it came time to make headcanons for the previous depiction. You could claim it's being transformative with a concept that didn't work, but what actually is the arc here? Tails learns that he has to become a hero in his own right, deciding that he'll go it alone in a future endeavor. While that sounds nice, it really reminds me of Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow the Hedgehog. If I just follow you, I will never see the light. It's back to square one, disguised as some coming-of-age story. And hey, I'll admit it, some of these scenes where Sonic reflects on how Tails has grown up are pretty endearing in a vacuum. I like this part where Sonic holds off his cyber corruption until Tails isn't looking, trying to tough it out for his little bro. I like this part where Sonic intentionally holds his hand around Tails' intangible shoulder, simulating his sincere intent. This is a heartfelt detail that had to require some directorial input. If I just close my eyes, pretend that this has been some consistent 30-year voyage, and see Tails as a maturing young ward, finally able to fly the nest, then this is pretty alright. But when I engage with the story on the level it so desperately wants me to, it falls apart. And that really is all we've got for Tails here, by the way. It's not like this is some background element, it's not like there's layers to this. The game truly can only offer commentary on his sidekick status. What else happens on Chaos Island? Well, if it's not more of the same boring observations about this inauthentic wasteland, it's something I don't think I can ignore any longer. This particular cutscene embodies it so well. I mean, firstly, guess the ancient flashback animation budget's running low, huh? It's a bunch of lasers and explosions, you get the idea, that's fine. Although it's not like these normally look super good anyway, so I really do wonder what is going on over there. Anyway, Sonic and Tails watch the decimation of an entire colony, and I am not kidding, this is what they say immediately afterward.
So, that was a thing.
Whatever assaulted the island sure packed a punch. That was on par with Dark Gaia, easy.
Sweet Jesus. Stop. Please stop. You'll have to excuse me. I was under the impression that we were past the days of tonal dissonance in Sonic Lost World, but here we are, in the middle of a serious moment, literally, unironically doing the whole MCU writing meme. So that just happened! Insert superfluous reference for audience applause. Yep, it's about time we talk about the references. These... So, look, a simple way to connect this messy series together would be to have the characters acknowledge previous events, right? Well, yes, but typically in everyday speech or in other ongoing media, someone would do that subconsciously, whenever relevant. What I've alluded to earlier, though, is that the game dives out of its way to bring up every other story instead of just telling this one. In momentary execution, it often goes like this.
What a view! Makes me think of the falls and Mystic Ruins.
Please tell me, Sonic, why the Mystic Ruins waterfall in particular? Why not Adabat? I'm very curious.
Wait, are you saying this is a beam weapon? Like on the egg carrier?
Yes, Sonic, like on the egg carrier, and also the hundreds of other beam weapons you see every day.
It's almost up there with the Eclipse Cannon.
Oh my god. Do you guys show up to a funeral and go, you know, this kinda reminds me of a time Shadow died in Sonic Adventure 2? By Chaos Island, it really feels like the game goes full throttle with these references, which I think if you have to consciously discern the ratio of that kind of thing, it's pretty telling how natural it is. Ironically, it makes the dialogue more robotic than it would have otherwise been. This carries two connotations to me. One, the story is self-aware of its lacking substance, and so it takes the path of least resistance by padding the dialogue out with fan service. No doubt, this will more easily satiate people than racking our brain trying to create something impactful out of characters just standing there. Or two, the story believes that this is substantive character writing, to which I'd say, oh no. An excellent example of why this is so terrible is, once again, the egg memos. I was actually pretty excited to collect these because I figured we would see the more observant, scientific side of Eggman. Left in a void that doesn't obey the conventional rules of nature, maybe we'd hear him go a bit stir-crazy, start finding some weird shit, maybe have his super genius knowledge tested to the point where he doesn't come out the same. I love the trope of diaries that tell a story all of their own, so what I find in Sonic Frontiers is that almost every one of these is just an excuse to pull up some zany deep cut, often with no prompting.
It's Sonic who named me Eggman. Except the joke's on him. I embraced the name. I made it my own. His mockery is now a name feared across the ages. I'm not going to adopt Baldy McNose here, though. My dignity has limits.
If it's not something as subtle as that, it'll be a quote which pretty obviously uses the current context as an opportunity to blurt out recognizable Sonic buzzwords.
Who were the Ancients? They predate any civilization by a wide margin. The Echidnas? Pfft. The Black Arms? Please. The Babylonians? Hardly.
And don't give me anything about how, oh, well, some of this is optional dialogue you may never hear. Shouldn't that kind of thing be, like, the really interesting stuff you want to find? Again, I'm just going by the character-focused vibe here. I think we've really lost the plot when flavor text in Sonic amounts to compulsively adding trivia every chance we get. Just slip it in, put it, oh yeah, right there. Cute little, I wonder if they'll get this one. You know, it's like, I came here to experience something. Are we an audience of Sonic Wiki contributors? When do we draw the line where something turns from a neat callback into a cheap gimmick? I guess even all that could be considered trivial if there was a solid through line overall. So, while Sonic and Tails have their little problem to solve, the overarching plot with Sage is nearing its boiling point. Oh, am I skipping over a few pages here? What is that plot exactly? Well, throughout the game, Sage has observed Sonic's unrelenting kindness and persistence, witnessing the power of friendship firsthand, which makes her little computer brain big confused. And that's basically it. But upon seeing the closest bond of all, that being the brotherly love between Sonic and Tails, a change occurs. And, what the fuck? When I saw this for the first time, I laughed. But I did not just laugh. I laughed for 5 minutes. I could not believe what I just saw. This has to be a joke, right? Sage reaches her key emotional shift with a 45-second montage of her and Eggman sitting in one spot, arguing for half of it, set to what sounds like the soothing voice of a child who's really trying their best at the talent show. No, it's not a joke. It's not even meant to be ironic, like showing that Sage has a really skewed perspective of love towards a vile man. No, it's played entirely straight, having this long ending shot and everything. One of the included flashbacks was literally a scene that was played 30 minutes ago. That is how little there is to this relationship. It's not like there was no time to build it up. It's not like nothing could have been done to sell this. Even the few scenes we did have between them could have been utilized better. Could you imagine if this exact thing happened in a 2000 Sonic game? It would be the biggest meme ever.
If I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic!
Na 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 na. It was at this point when I truly came to terms with how I felt. This story sucks, I said aloud to myself. It doesn't matter if it's better than Lost World, better than Forces, but wait a minute, that metric is exactly what it wants me to think. I realized here that, oh hang on, it's not just fixing Tails, it's fixing Amy too. It's attempting to fix something about Knuckles, I think. And how we go about fixing these characters is to retread of the stories we told in Sonic Adventure 1. Ooh, and we're even fixing the lore by conjuring up reasons to acknowledge all the previous games. Everything's canon after all, except you, Chronicles. And now you might say, well, clearly this game is intended to be a refresher for Sonic. As such, they're just trying to re-establish everything for a new generation of players. Right, except the way they do that is by responding to things only old players would ever care about. What new player is picking up Sonic Frontiers and going, ah yes, I think I vibe with this Amy character. She really has a way of sitting in fields and complaining. I look forward to seeing what she's capable of next time. Next time, next time, next time. I ask, how can I trust that next time will be good when I see that the story we're telling right now with new character Sage is Krudzu?
It's true.
And how many times have been next time? It's pandemonium. But what I can say for damn sure is that the previous stories were never reliant on what could be, no matter how bad they got. This is not a story. It's the idea of a story, the concept of character, the signifier of existence. In other words, it's a Twitter game. Thus far, you might have noticed that I've been referring to the narrative in broad terms. They, it, the story, the game. I have not assigned blame to anyone or anything but the subject itself. But right now, before I go any further, I want to make some things pretty clear. I'm finally going to address the knowing smile in the room, Ian Flynn. Not personally, of course, but if you're watching this, hi. As I stated before, people were really looking forward to Flynn's contributions here, me included. Once the game came out, however, a sizable amount of people would poke fun at the forced references, especially the ones with visual accompaniment. Flynn writing became a recognizable meme for a while, but even so, I would say that most were enthusiastic about the story this time around. Many would jump to Flynn's defense, quoting an interview where he said that Sega provided the story, backstory, plot beats, usable characters, and so on. So therefore, if you think the story sucks, it's not Flynn's fault. He just wrote the dialogue. Well, personally speaking, I don't really care who done it. I'm not here to create a smear campaign against someone who is working under parameters we will never know the full extent of. Ian Flynn seems like an incredibly patient, honest, stand-up guy who has been transparently answering as many questions as he can because he clearly cares about his craft. At the same time, though, I think it's a bit dishonest and dismissive to imply that he had no part in the story he was hyped up for at all. Yes, the people who were in charge of the actual game provided the premise to work with, but that's literally what writing for an established IP is. Flynn has made it known that his role was fleshing out those ideas and even contributing some of his own. If it's all just dialogue to bridge the gaps, well, I think the bombshell here is that the dialogue is the story, because nothing happens otherwise. There's a whole host of info Flynn has given which I could make declarative statements about, but I don't see the need, because even if he verifiably made choices I dislike, Sega published the game and is ultimately responsible for its final state. Could it not just be that mistakes were made and that there is no culprit here? It's no secret that some things were cut or that certain scenes probably looked better on paper. Any number of things could be happening, and none of that matters to me because I'm discussing what is. People have been rather protective now that we have a writer who knows Sonic on board. This fact alone means he's infallible, and as such, his writing needs our unwavering support. I find it a little strange how we're so quick to make sure that Flynn's good name is not besmirched, while, at the same time, using it to dunk on Pontac and Graf, labeling them as the reason why the 2010s had awful storytelling. Is that very fair? Were they not just doing their jobs, same as Ian Flynn? The point is, I think it's okay to criticize what needs to be criticized, and you don't have to be out to get someone for it. I know it's rich coming from me, but maybe we're overthinking this. Let it be known that I have no ill will towards anyone working on Sonic when I put their work on blast, just the same as we did for games in the more primitive internet era. If I seem a bit theatrical, I just want you to think about that. Thank you. So Rhea Island is what I think I'll see when I die. After you beat Knight, Sonic and Tails just pop up here for no reason whatsoever, bearing witness to 6 towers rising from the ground which looks pretty familiar. It turns out that Rhea Island is actually just the other half of Kronos Island that you were forbidden from entering by an invisible wall. What's more is that it's not an actual full island, it's just a series of Halo Forge towers, complete with 2D sections. Oh, goody. I could not believe my eyes. The game's very basic promise of exploring 5 massive Starfall islands was a sham. Any immersion that may have existed before this is gone as you're randomly whisked away to climb the Towers of Tedium. You think this is going to be like the Midna's Lament of Sonic Frontiers, with how dire the music is, with how Sonic succumbs to his cyber corruption more with every tower and cutscenes, but then in gameplay everything is completely fine. You're not impaired at all, there's no set pieces, you're just parkouring over the same dev blocks you've seen all game. They couldn't even make this feel special. But that's not all. It's here where we get a tried and true lore dump, finally revealing what the Ancients are and what their connection is to the Chaos Emeralds. Oh, I can feel the excitement in the air. Are you ready? Here we go. The Ancients are actually aliens who brought the Chaos Emeralds to Earth after their home planet was destroyed by a big evil thing. Though apparently the Master Emerald is what drew them to Earth, suggesting that the Chaos Emeralds were not created by the Ancients. When the mystery monster caught up to them, military pilots sealed it within cyberspace using 4 Titans at the cost of their lives. And that's it. That's the story of the Ancients. Do we learn the race's true name? Somehow we don't, even though everything about them is uploaded digitally. Do we learn anything about their home planet or how water people command such sophisticated technology? Nah, no, not really. Does Sonic have anything to say about any of this? Anything at all? Of course not. Maybe he's not even seeing it. Maybe the game just elected to play some pre-rendered videos to keep the kids occupied. The origins of the Chaos Emeralds, which TalesTube had teased in pre-release, is that they were brought from outer space. Wow. But we don't even actually know their true origins, meaning that this does nothing except add an extra step to the lore we already had. Then again, I suppose it could be worse. I suppose they could have completely destroyed intrigue in exchange for some lame backstory we'd be stuck with forever. But that's not a bargain we should have to make. Fun fact, by the way, Ian Flynn has gone on record to say that while Sega gave him the premise of aliens, he thought that was kind of overdone. So it was actually he who suggested that they be ancestors of chaos, forming at least some meaningful connection. This is an admirable attempt, but I think it raises more questions when you look past the initial nostalgic rush, in a bad way. It becomes incredibly distracting that nobody calls attention to this, save for one egg memo which explains that the few remaining ancients possibly had their DNA corroded over time by the Master Emerald, eventually becoming the Chao we know today. So, what you're saying is, the Master Emerald mutated the ancients into Chao, but then a Chao mutated by the Master Emerald becomes Chaos, who is a godlike ascension of the ancients he was originally a devolution of? Yeah, I'm sure one could scientifically explain how this works, but my point is that this all appears to be a giant afterthought. What were the ancients originally supposed to look like? Were they meant to look like cyber elves? That would explain why Sage looks the way she does, because the game sure doesn't elaborate. I'm sorry, if Sonic Frontiers is meant to be some lore-centric title, then no. It can't do that because even its own mythos is a jarring, underdeveloped graveyard of ideas. Although, I suppose that is to be expected when a lot of these ideas are a bit more than inspired. During pre-release, Sonic Frontiers was touted as a bold new direction for the series. Takashi Iizuka would even go on to state that this will kickstart the third generation of Sonic's evolution, the first being the classic era and the second being Sonic Adventure all the way through Sonic Forces. Okay. Yes, this game was theoretically meant to shake the conventions of Sonic in a way comparable to its 2D and 3D inceptions. That's a pretty big claim. It kinda reminds me of what happened with the little game that came out the same year as Sonic Team's previous outing. You may have heard of it. It's a game which was created out of a development team's desire to break out of a 3D mold they had standardized. It's a game which, in defiance of tradition, ended up circling back to philosophies that began its namesake. As such, it's a game that ushered a new beginning and would go on to be as influential as the previous design shift in 1998. Of course, the game I refer to is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. I am going to be incredibly blunt here. The ambitious new take on the Sonic the Hedgehog format is nothing more than a comically laid attempt to cash in on someone else's success. The fact that Sonic seriously is trying to equate its inarguably jumbled history to the likes of Zelda, preemptively, also acting like the previous new eras of Sonic never happened, is pretty laughable. As if Forces is the result of a formula going stale when it's virtually unrecognizable from SA1, and downscaled besides. But then, instead of following Zelda's example from an inner value standpoint like the rest of the gaming industry, because yes, everyone is inspired by something, Sonic Frontiers elects to copy Breath of the Wild in almost every way it can. Every way that would not involve creating an actual open world with multifaceted systems. Even this was turned into a marketing scheme at some point. No, you just don't understand. It's not an open world game, it's an open zone game. You've never seen anything like it. I was about to bet that the art style would have been replicated too, but this concept art is actually pretty awesome. Too bad that in the final game, it's easier to reuse dated assets in a generated field. You know, like all the Breakout classics. I'm not arguing about this. People have just taken it at face value that this is some innovative passion project, and I'm sorry, I have to reject the notion when so much of its creation is framed around this shallow incentive. It's not a coincidence. I could be here all day listing off every concept the game stole, but what matters for today is how that affects the story. The story Sega provided Ian Flynn is that an ancient, technologically advanced civilization attempted to defeat a primordial embodiment of red evil using 4 mechs. Those same mechs are now corrupted in the modern day. The protagonist then needs to traverse a desolate, yet theoretically beautiful landscape in order to liberate his spiritual comrades. Early versions of the premise even detailed Sonic waking up with amnesia or losing his memories later in the game. Ironically, that would be more interesting for him than a new incarnation of Link, but good lord. The goal of this tale was never to expand the Sonic universe in any meaningful way. It was never to shatter your perception of what a Sonic story can be. It was yet another stinking gimmick played off as a mystery. Just like Forces. Or better yet, just like the previous new formula, Super Mario Lost World. And it doesn't even imitate the idea well either. Sonic's friends don't even add to your move pool when you finish their island. Like, huh? The most basic cool thing. I can't believe this, but I think Breath of the Wild tells a better story than Sonic Frontiers by at least having a world to unravel, some people to learn about, visible connections, which, yeah, Breath of the Wild isn't exactly lauded for its enticing narrative. There's only so much I could like this thing, even if it was executed better. Bold new direction. More like old nude erection. I'm still not done. Alright, enough about Zelda. Let's talk about Sonic. And I do mean that literally because I've got something to say about the hedgehog himself. As our hero trudges onward across Rhea Island, his own little character study draws to a close. Yes, each island has had something to say about his friends, but what about the main man? On this island, there are no friends to talk to, no tokens to collect. Sonic is left only with his own thoughts. Well, also the occasional murmurings of Sage. Despite her revelation before, she continues to prattle off her algorithms, and Sonic finally starts to ignore her, just pushing through the worsening cyber corruption with a pained smile. I actually like this part. This feels like the Sonic I know who would demonstrate his conviction through actions instead of words. Unfortunately, the writing of Sonic Frontiers can make even this come off really preachy and insincere. Something I've neglected to mention is that on every island, there's at least one scene where the designated friend will comment on just how unstoppable Sonic is. It's to the point where Sage, in an effort to understand it, directly asks Tails about his belief in Sonic. This is notable for being the only one-on-one interaction she has with any of Sonic's friends, and it's just spent talking about Sonic anyway. Sonic is a great guy. Sonic sure is a paragon of virtue, unlike us dorky side characters who need to get a grip. This is the point of Sonic and Sage. Their entire dynamic is this. It's not enough for Sage to witness the direct result of following your heart. Oh no, the game even needs to stare you in the eyes and explain this concept. Hooray, the Sonic Forces Messiah arc continues. But the funny thing is that it's all for this Sonic. The most dude Sonic I have ever seen. This guy who just stands there and comments on things incidentally, not even really behaving in any sort of outlandish fashion. At most, he can be kinda sarcastic, kinda cheeky. This is like the whole shonen protagonist trope if the protagonist in question were Bill from Home Depot. Oh, or maybe it's Pastor Bill because he's an advocate of forgiveness? Like, where did this even come from? I'll tell you where it came from. It came from looking at the ending of Sonic and the Black Knight and going, yes, that is his entire character. No. Moments like the Black Knight ending were important because they were warranted. There was a very specific reason why Sonic treated Merlina differently than he would Eggman. In Sonic Adventure, it's clearly meant to be a subversion that, after a whole game of fighting a big drip, Sonic actually is the only one who understands that sealing chaos won't solve anything. It was this powerful moment that showed how Sonic knew a lot more than you'd think, a testament to the free spirit only he has. But you know, it's not like this thing that he just goes around and does all the time, with every person he ever meets. It's certainly not something that everyone's talking about, like, oh wow, that's Sonic, he sure does know the way. I thought the whole point is that he is who he is. You love seeing him because he's just irresistibly charming everywhere he goes. Whether it be the interpretation that he's an easygoing drifter just looking for a new adventure, or that he's a cocky action star. The hero part kind of comes second. It's not really like his occupation, right? Okay, except for that one time. Look, there's surely a discussion to be had, but I don't know, I've always felt that the appeal of Sonic was pretty straightforward for almost 2 decades. Many would agree that this fundamentally changed when the series began leaning into comedy. The character began to feel like a wisecracking dick cheese, and that free spirit would mutate into apathy. At the very least, he just wasn't cool anymore. Sonic Frontiers feels like the opposite problem. Now he's so cool, very based, much valid. It's circled around to make him a boring archetype, which is exactly what we criticize 06 for. And the point of this, the whole point of this, is for Sonic's friends to instantly cure him of his cyber corruption by standing in a circle around him, holding hands, chanting their character traits, which revolve around him, and then going inside him, ending with this da 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 shot. This really happens, exactly like that. I'm not kidding. The most dire conflict is solved by a Sonic seance. I would dare say that this game knows its audience. But I should be mindful, it's not like people are coming out in droves to defend this scene. I think most would agree that this part is pretty rushed, pretty silly. For me, it's just extra bad as the cherry on top of a character portrayal I didn't care for. And yet, what if I told you that we still don't have the sprinkles on this Sunday? In this one cutscene, we're emblematically shown just how much the plot has been lost between our main hero and villain. So get this. Now that Sonic has broken the locks, Eggman is free at last. But so is the scary voice in the sky, which, plot twist, is the real villain of this game. And it moans like it's the Babylon Guardian. Apparently, though, Sage never told Eggman about this thing, and Eggman never learned about it despite scouring the ancient databases himself. I should emphasize, Dr. Eggman's time in cyberspace was not spent learning about the causality of the Ancients' demise, which is the entire reason why every piece of them is now a digital relic. It was spent on stupid fandom trinkets and hollow whining. His reaction to the omnipresent demon voice is to say, oh yeah? Well, I'm gonna send the egg fleet from Sonic Heroes after you, loser. Like, who even is this guy? How does the smartest man in the room have zero clue what's going on here? Wait a minute. No, hang on. What about this egg memo, which clearly says that Sage did tell him about it? What is this meant to show, that he just forgot or wasn't listening? Maybe they could have taken a page out of Kirby's Adventure on NES and had it be this thing where Eggman is learning loads upon loads of horrible information that Sonic is ignorant of, desperately wanting to warn him so that the world isn't engulfed in darkness. That might have been an interesting idea, having Eggman be on Sonic's side basically the entire game, showing just how daunting this new threat is. Instead, what we get is this.
After reviewing your entire campaign history, I have found the most optimal course of action is to create an alliance with Sonic.
What?
But together you stopped the Ark, overcame Neo Metal.
I don't want to hear it. Those alliances were purely out of desperation.
Translation, we're blatantly ignoring the previous Sonic and Eggman team-ups so that we can have hilarious banter about this unlikely partnership. Sure enough, when it comes time to once again team up with Sonic out of desperation, there's this whole oh man thing going on. As if Sonic is joining Eggman's dodgeball team, he's like, I hereby induct you into the Eggman Empire. Blah. I want to remind you that this is the same man who just took over the world, nearly executing Sonic and his friends, which is even referenced in this game. This game wants to remind you that he previously would work together with Sonic, no questions asked. In SA2, he comes in and he's all, oh great, you're not actually dead. Figures. And Sonic's all, up yours too, buddy. And then they get to work. Good, magnifique. Tells you everything you need to know about these two while keeping the plot moving. Sonic Frontiers actively defies this, pretty much telling you that Eggman has changed his mind and would prefer to make a big deal out of it, dragging the pace to a crawl for the sake of reminding the audience that he's an evil man, TM. The egg memos even have him saying out loud that his schemes are constantly ruined by Sonic, the hero who he also kind of respects. Like, are you trying to decimate the credibility of this character? This is the story-driven game, and yet it actually manages to dethrone Sonic Lost World in the worst egg hog contest. I mean, wow. And it's not like I'm taking this too seriously, because now more than ever before, the writing wants you to take Dr. Eggman seriously. Quote, "We wanted Eggman to be an extremely important key figure in this story for it to be successful. We didn't want him to just be the bad guy in our good guys versus bad guys scenario. We wanted to portray him as a flesh and blood human being in the story." Additionally, when asked about his favorite character to write for, Ian Flynn says, "I try to find something fun in all the characters, but letting loose with Dr. Eggman is always a delight. We get to take his character in some interesting directions in Sonic Frontiers." How exactly does this story let loose with Eggman? What is the interesting direction here? Because when it comes to his overall relevance in the story, I kind of forgot he was even in it. I mean, in his second cutscene, the game makes a joke about how insecure he is about his comparatively lame tech. Hold on to your girdles, I think we're about to see some premium Ivo Robotnik. No, to understand how Eggman is a key figure in this story, we have to look at his newfound parenthood. Okay, so to Frontiers' credit, something new is finally being done with one of the staple characters, something that does not just involve writer's commentary. This is something which could visibly affect the character and act as a notable piece of their ongoing history. And I think it's awful. Truly, this is the point where I do wonder if I'm insane, because to me, this is like really bad. I'm talking Son Elise levels of cringe. Anyone can tell you how weird it is that Eggman is pretty much instantly enamored with Sage from a functional standpoint, but this gets even weirder when he begins to reciprocate this familial bond. When exactly this occurs is debatable, seeing as it happens in, yet again, an egg memo. By the way, these are not chronologically ordered. It would seem that Dad Botnik begins with him wondering what Sage's preferred gender is, being that she appears as a little girl, which, reminder, is never directly explained. Even with background context, the story here actually is that Eggman uploaded his AI to an alien database, she popped out as a baby, and then suddenly he's like, "Behold, the daughter I never knew I wanted." What a compelling arc. But it gets even worse when the egg memos make this a joke, with him getting defensive about his ability to create life, or him using Sage as an opportunity to talk about how jealous he was of his cousin Maria. What would even prompt him to record that? It's so forced. The entire game is focused on showing just how genuinely pathetic Eggman is to a cartoonish degree. Is there any subtext about him shifting priorities in life now that he's already lost his global conquest? No, of course not. That would go against his position as the franchise villain. Maybe he's feeling a bit lonely, having been trapped in isolation for what feels like an eternity. Well, that could have been a unique scenario, but no, it can only exist in the realm of headcanon. And if I'm gonna be honest, guys, I just don't buy that Eggman would ever genuinely care about having a real daughter in the first place, not without well-established motivation. This is the guy who has single-handedly caused a string of catastrophes. This is the guy who will very directly torment and murder children if it gets him what he wants. Not to say that dictators don't have a lineage, mind you, I just think he's well beyond good family values. This, so wholesome deep down Eggman just doesn't work when it's established in, again, Sonic Adventure 1 that he will call his robots siblings only to viciously discard them when they are no longer useful. Like, yeah, the guy's over 50 years old. I'm pretty sure he's thought of this concept before and has done so in a twisted, self-serving fashion because he's an ambitious megalomaniac. Sonic Frontiers wants all this credit for humanizing Eggman, but I thought such a feat was done remarkably in SA2 when we explored a bit of his family history, showing a side to him that existed before his campaign of terror. His sensitivities were expressed in a way that didn't paint him as a man-child trying to take over the tri-state area, which ironically made him more of a bad dude in defiance of his family's principles. I don't just think Frontiers fails to provide a worthwhile depiction of Eggman, I think it assassinates the character even more than Forces did by making it impossible for him to ever be taken seriously again. Even after conquering the world, others treat him like a clown, and the only way for him to escape this is by either embracing the role of gag villain, or by holding up a crudely written sign that says, "This is a serious Eggman moment." It might sound dramatic, but any shred of nuance or excitement with this character has been eliminated to the point where you need to make another correction plot to truly bring it back. Which then begs the question, do you want to build off the past, or do you want to disregard it? You can't do both, because when you do, you reach the culmination of a very mismanaged 30 years. Maybe there was some way that all this could work for me, at least a little better. After all, it seems to do the trick for other people, and I have to admit, I can think of a reason why there's such a disparity. Oh, and just to be clear, I do try to avoid tinted lenses when I see my optometrist, but we all see things differently, so... Yeah, I've tried not to make it about this, but I can't dodge the topic any longer. The English voice acting in this game is crippling. As a seasoned veteran, though, I have an observation I would like to make about the general state of Sonic voice acting, so I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here. I'm not attacking anybody, don't be weird. So basically, I think the Studiopolis cast has only gone downhill, unlike the Adventure and 4Kids voices, which would improve as time went on. This wave has been here longer than the other two combined, so you would expect that they've settled into these roles. And you know what? I'd say they have, which is strangely my biggest concern. Once you get past the initial shock factor, I find that there was a certain energy and gusto that was once there for these actors, which gave us a bit of hope that they could grow into the definitive cast overall. At very least, the most consistent. However, this would be interrupted when Sonic Boom happened. Let me be clear, I actually think the new actors were at their best here. In a branch that is solely dedicated to Western talent, I think they were able to attune these characters to their voices and vice versa, creating an environment that played to their strengths. Not that I'm the biggest fan of Boom, but it felt more natural than grafting these voices onto the original characters. Well, come time to distance the IP from those 3 years of Boom, and I think the effect on voice direction is noticeable. The example I always point to is the fact that Travis Willingham's Knuckles always had this kind of whiny jock voice, especially in the Boom cartoon. So in Forces, they obviously have him put on more of a serious performance, but it then ends up sounding like Boom Knuckles doing an impression of a serious person. You see, it doesn't even sound like the actor's other, more mature roles. The same kind of goes for Shadow, who sounds notably different in Forces to how he sounds in anything else before or after, as if there's a default Shadow voice and this was the exception. Everyone else in Forces either sounded like they did in the silly sitcom-esque show, or they sound like they're quickly picking up a character they barely know from 6 years ago. Therefore, even when disregarding the writing, I've always felt that Forces had an oddly casual vibe. This was compounded by Team Sonic Racing, which cemented what I have dubbed Twitter takeover voice acting. The general essence of the characters sounding like they're doing a live reading or a quick promotion, but like for a whole story. It's hard to place, but nobody really sounds like they're in the game, you know? It's like you can practically hear the fact that these are just isolated vocal recordings. Sure, most of the lines are said correctly, but it doesn't genuinely sound like the character speaking. It sounds like the actor being told, do the voice. Fast forward to Sonic Frontiers, where everyone was counting on a fresh change of pace, and oh lord. Take what I said about Knuckles in Forces and apply that to almost every character. To invoke the moody tone of this game, everyone has been directed not to react to things naturally, but to say almost everything like this, making sure to keep their emotional and vocal range below a threshold. To which, I'm not a voice professional, but I'd say that if you feel inclined to dramatically deepen every character's voice for an entire project so that they can be taken seriously, that exposes an inner perception of their usual range. Of course, the irony here is that I think this backfires and makes it even harder to take these voices seriously because everything they say is either comedically melodramatic or jarringly unenthused. It's like they're all narrating audiobooks or trying to tell me I have problems or something. Roger Sonic has completed his transformation into the parody version of himself people have done over the years. Amy sounds like a weary middle-aged mom. Knuckles is literally some guy I probably met at the gym. And Eggman sounds like he's running low on Starbucks gift cards.
The amount of data stored here defies quantification. But it won't stop me from trying.
What happened here? The case of Mike Pollock is the most demonstrative to me because I loved his performance in the past. He even played a more toned-down version of the character in Sonic 06, and I think that's one of his best outings, so surely the same can be true here.
Rest assured, they're not dead. Yet.
But ever since Forces, he's retained the whole disgruntled next-door neighbor persona from Boom, which either features a very angry man who yells at minor inconveniences, or this grumbly guy. You kind of forget that Eggman was ever a regal scientist, a person with grandiose charisma wherever he goes, because by now, all I can hear is the actor talking behind a microphone, going through the motions. That's the thing, right? I'm not saying that any previous Sonic game had 10 out of 10 voice acting, or even that those characters talk like people in real life. What I'm saying is that they weren't like real life. They were playing out memorable scenes with charming intonations that stuck with you, even if a bit cheesy. If Sonic Frontiers had a great story, but the voice acting was dreary, I wouldn't say that ruins the experience. But if the story of Sonic Frontiers is bad, I would say that it could have been helped by really enjoyable performances or stunning cutscenes. It's like night and day. I can't possibly see this as some return to proper storytelling when there's not a single thing that carries or elevates it. I say all this without even going over casting ideals because that's kind of a moot point by now, but geez, I still feel it. My final note on this is that Sonic has had the same English voice director since 2010, so understandably, a routine has been established. However, if the stories are going to be written on the Western side, I think now's the time to make some hands-on changes, because Frontiers still feels to me like an average localization where the actors are more distant from their characters. Precedent for this exists with the previous actors gradually moving away from their 4Kids TV over enunciation, and I think there's an opportunity here without evaporating the talent yet again. But who am I? I'm just a guy. End tangent. Okay, one last island. We're in the endgame now, so let's wrap this boy up. Oh, I'm sorry, I must have grabbed the Kronos Island footage by mistake. Let me just... Oh, I see. Yes, even the fifth and final Starfall Island, Oranos, is an extension of Kronos Island. Only this time, it was not separated by an invisible wall, it was literally a chunk of the island surgically removed at some point in development. You can actually see the shallow water it was pulled from in the opening cutscene, like, oh my god. What's more is that while Oranos Island probably has my favorite open zone theme in the game, there aren't any additional movements, and so eventually they just interrupt it to start playing Kronos again? What is happening here? Make no mistake, this is a full island complete with a character side story in the form of Sage. What do Sage's memory tokens look like? They just reused Amy's heart tokens. Which, yeah, by the way, the characters are definitely not stereotypes describable by a single object. Okay, well, now that we can finally slow down and talk to Sage, maybe there's a whole helping of depth behind her relationship with Eggman that we just don't know about. Nah, forget it, I'm not doing this again. It's nothing! Sonic and Sage talk about nothing! Sonic points out that all of this could have been avoided if Sage just told him basic information, and then she's like, yeah, but plot. And then they proceed to repeat information they already know. There's one part where Sage explains to Sonic that the Ancients were preparing to face their enemy here, and Sonic is like, wow, that explains what was painfully obvious since Island number 1. But he's not being sarcastic. It's so bad, and tedious to play too. There's no hiding that this is just plain filler. There's literally just not a final level here. Sonic and Sage dick around in the grass. It's the calm before the storm. Yeah. Remember in Sonic Unleashed when you went to the chill, beautiful Adabat before Eggman Land? I do. That game was the Prince of Padding, but I guess we just hadn't seen the king yet. This island is practically begging for you to just bum rush it with Biggs fishing, since the token requirement is just outrageous. Or now you can go with the even easier option of Monster Hunter cooking. So tasty. So tasteless. At some point, the game finally relents and allows you to fight the final boss, and it sort of just happens. Sonic's like, okay, here we go, we gotta do this. And then Eggman's contribution here is that he grabbed one Chaos Emerald for us. So all that bickering earlier, it was all for this tiny little exchange, which itself is written to be a joke at the very end. An extremely important key figure in this story for it to be successful. Here's the thing, guys. We could try to look at Eggman and Sage through a lens of self-containment, completely ignoring any previous idea of characterization, even though that's obviously not the story's intention, nor should that really be required. But even then, it's virtually impossible for me to latch onto anything because it just isn't there. The finale of Sonic Frontiers is here to show you, physically, that this has been a string of bullet points to present the illusion of a story, the illusion of an expansive Sonic game. The supposed final boss, I kid you not, is a reskinned Giganto model with mechanics that barely even work, angelic wings that disappear immediately after sprouting even in the final patch, and an overall less climactic feel than what was amped up in the regular Titan fights. Seeing as this also takes place in a forest clear of its fog, it becomes apparent that the Supreme we're looking at is some cobbled together remnant of the initial leaked focus test. Yes, for real, this assault of assets is the point where the main theme, I'm here, is used, as if it's the crowning moment like in Days of Old.
Is that it?
No, Sonic, no it is not. Well, not quite. If, like any regular person, you were playing this game on normal difficulty, then that was the final boss. An abrupt QTE takes the place of a climactic second phase, and then you win. Dead serious. Thankfully, you can switch difficulties at any time, so it seems like they did this literally to squeeze a depressing One OK Rock song into a less good ending. But who would ever think of all this in their 2022 3D Sonic? Sometimes this immersive open zone experience feels like a shitty NES game. That's not relevant to the story, I just think it's too asinine to go without mention. Our mystery monster is about to take its final form, so it looks like Sage will have to lend us a hand. But before she goes, Eggman finally gives a reluctant, heartfelt send-off to this being who he really, genuinely cares about as a loving father. And it has all the weight of a leaking balloon. This is meant to be the narrative's peak, the moment in which you see that someone has been deeply affected by the journey here. But how can that happen when Sage's bond with Eggman doesn't even occur on screen, or even after a substantial period? How can that happen when Eggman isn't a character we can even root for because he's an NPC who's not doing anything? How can that happen when Sage is yet another bland, underdeveloped waste of potential in the exact same vein as Infinite, only marginally better by virtue of more screen time? The answer is because the game told you that you're meant to have feelings again. The take it or leave it. And we take what chances we can get. Now you might be wondering, who is the true antagonist, the fearsome power that brings our heroes and villains together? Who or what is the end? That's an excellent question, and it can only be answered by what you see on screen. Straight from the main Morio himself, the end has no tangible form, and so it takes what our mortal comprehension sees as the embodiment of death. And in this case, that's a purple moon, a floating rock, a rotating sphere model of untold origin. Yep, it's never asked about or addressed, not even slightly. The directorial artistry on display here is captivating, with this esoteric hidden entity recycling the form of the Ikaruga hacking minigame you just played 5 minutes ago, shooting laser graphics that don't even spatially come out of anything, while bombarding you with a monologue that you'll have to listen to every time you die to this incredibly long bullet hell, symbolically endowing the player with dread and hopelessness, much the same as the poor, confused ancients when their society was downed by this motivationless manifestation. In other words, they made an even worse final boss fight than Forces. Likewise, in what I can only describe as an act of curated brilliance, Frontiers continues the trend Lost World established by featuring the cringiest Roger Sonic line right before the final encounter. Though this time, instead of trying to be funny, it's trying too hard in another way.
He took your home world. He took your lives. Are you going to let him do it all over again? I need your help. We can end this. Please.
He took your jobs! Sonic, who are you talking to? Work with the Titans to defeat the end? What is this, a spiritual battle? A spiritual space shooter with no visual stakes, no thematic cohesion, and no utilization of knowledge chronicled by the ancient sacrifice? The end is a completely random element detached from anything actually going on in this story, the textbook definition of a monster of the week. There's no parallel to draw here. The ancients are passing the torch to Sonic, who passes the torch of heroism to everyone around him, and then together they can defeat perceived inevitability and forge a new future, I guess. Oh wait, we've done all this before and much nicer in Sonic and the Black Knight. What happened here? 5 years? 5 years was spent for this? The final stretch of Sonic Frontiers is beyond embarrassing. Despite their best efforts, the power of Super Sonic is not enough to stop the End's final gambit, and so, Sage uses the Supreme Titan for its intended purpose, negating a planetary explosion and saving more lives than just her father's, at the sacrifice of her own. As Sonic plummets to Earth among a dazzling array of falling stars, Ivo realizes that his dear daughter is not one of them. Away from prying eyes, he mourns, but soon stands tall, determined that his genius will carry on as she always would have wanted. In that moment, he senses her in the skies above and knows that she'll be watching over him. Unbeknownst to the Doctor, Sage's parting wish was for Sonic to look after him, despite their supposed animosity. And in the aftermath of these events, Sonic reflects on her unbridled devotion with these words.
So, that was fun.
So, Sonic has officially developed into a sociopath, aware that he is a silly blue boy in a piece of digital media and that nothing actually matters to him, diverting the focus onto everyone else's personal voyage. For one last time, Tails says he's gonna go off and learn to be a man, Knuckles entertains the notion of not sitting in one spot all day, and Amy hopes to go on a road trip that spreads love to random strangers with her gal pals, Cream and Styx. Yep, that Styx. Styx the Badger. If you needed any indicator that these references prioritize indulgence over strengthening the universe's connectivity, this would be it. Do you know how many fans I've seen who actually believe that this confirms, somehow, that Sonic Boom is canon to these characters? Do you know how many people there are who actually think that the mention of Tangle in some random Family Guy cutaway quote is meant to tease some elaborate IDW bridge game? Or heck, the adventures of self-reflection that Sonic's friends are excited to go on? People have told me what an awesome ending this is because it implies that the floodgates have been cracked wide open and that there's a whole roadmap of games and character spin-offs which will change the hierarchy of the Sonic universe. Sure, these characters were lame now, but they're telling us they'll be cool next time. This is just the beginning of a master arc to definitively lay all the shaky lore decisions to rest. And, well, I could comment on how gracefully planned this game is, casting immeasurable doubt on anything like that occurring. I could bring up Bumblecast episodes which do the same thing, but I think the ultimate linchpin here is the fact that a significant chunk of this is not present in the Japanese script. The game's director surprisingly localized the story himself, citing that the core audience is much different where the games are actually made. When it comes to the main story cutscenes, a lot of these references are gone. There's no Styx, and there is no Dart Gaia. These are entirely superfluous and have no bearing on anything Sonic Team is actually doing with their games. In fact, Amy still loves and wants to impress Sonic. Knuckles cares more about his heritage than getting off his island, and Tails' insecurities aren't in response to forces. The dynamic between Eggman and Sage is also a lot more one-sided, with her wanting to win his approval by the end of it all. Do I think the story works as a result? No, especially since the presentation is even more glaring with how the dialogue doesn't remotely match the facial or body language, but I'd still recommend giving it a look if you're curious. You can say, well then, maybe you should play it in Japanese for better voiceover and dialogue, but there are no authentically translated subtitles in these games. Also, the intended story is the Western version this time. It's the one we're all talking about at any rate. More to the point though, it doesn't matter. This game isn't really about anything, because despite everything I've gone over here, it can all be summed up as, welp, that sure was Sonic Frontiers, let's go home. Oh, and one more thing. In the post-credits scene, Eggman brings Sage back to life, meaning that she doesn't even have to wait a few years like Shadow did. Holy God. Not since Paper Mario Sticker Star have I seen a game this afraid of telling a story. What better way is there to sum up the narrative of Sonic Frontiers than by a man quickly fixing everything on his computer, shrouded in foreboding darkness? Displayed on his screen would be the very symbol that started it all, a symbol which still holds no meaning. After such an exhausting wait, this is how things turned out. A tale which, in my opinion, is a big nothing burger. Well, but surely if it were that simple, I'd have not made this whole video about it, right? I must admit, sometimes I would ask myself, why am I doing this? But then I remember. The answer is the same reason you've watched this far, dear viewer. Yes, even if you skipped ahead. I know what you did. Sonic Frontiers is not just some game. It was the next major saga. It promised to be the beginning of a new era, a clean slate for which new fans of the live-action movies can jump on in and experience the evolution of this beloved IP. It was touted as the foundation that the next decade of Sonic would iterate on, and a new Sonic Team title card was created to show their dedication to quality moving forward. In the words of legendary composer Tomoya Otani, the team included a message in the form of the game's true ending song, One Way Dream. This is conveyed through lyrics such as, "They said we'd break, they said we'd lose, but here we are. What else is new?" Yeah. Lucky for them, the game broke franchise sales records and would satisfy a sizable portion of the fanbase. With the creation of a lore team and the opportunity for Ian Flynn to get hands-on with an official game, the story, too, appeared to be the dawn of a new age. So would I want to cover every new piece of Sonic writing I don't like? No, of course not. I'd hope not. This one mattered. Even if the gameplay was a lost cause, even if the graphics were subpar, there was finally a chance to turn things around for the better in an area I really cared about growing up. And then I was met with this. I go online and I find out that most people seem to like this. A lot of the things I really hate about it are things that fans are pleased with. So I can't really say that it's just one bad egg when the anomaly here is me. Even those who weren't enthused would say there's nothing to care much about here, but I would beg to differ because in this game, I saw many things which gave me a pretty good idea what Sonic will be about in the 2020s. I do believe a new era is upon us, indeed. Really, the writing's been on the wall for a while now, but I think they've done a decent job clearing up the picture. Just for clarification, I don't exactly place a lot of stock into era names, nor do I really care for the competition. I think there are good games and bad games across the board, regardless of when I got into it. Because Sonic fans get really uppity about the technicalities and implications of labels, I tend to just refer to timeframes in the most neutral way I can. 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and so forth. That doesn't really take key events into account, but people get the idea. However, because I think it's fun, the name I've personally dubbed this current wave of Sonic is the Brand Era. Normally I would say that these descriptors should be reserved for when history has settled, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the provisional state of a series will continue. Since 2020, we've seen a great focus on brand consolidation, more direct cross-promotional goals between the different mediums. The IDW comics are designed to fit within the game canon, the classic Sonic dimension has been swiftly retracted, the Two Worlds debate along with it, and Prime is kept at arm's length as well. The movies are the farthest removed, but even so, they are the leading factor in getting people introduced to the source material. Instead of having many of those identities to overwhelm the new consumer, steps have been taken to build a general Sonic image. What better way to show this than by finally getting rid of that 2015 banner? Thank you. The series has always tried to broaden its appeal, but now more than ever before, the strategy has been to make it a marketable, recognizable, sanitized entity. Where this ties back into writing would be things like the Fast Friends Forever initiative, which featured character artwork and updated bios that, shall we say, reflected their current status. Amy's pushed herself to grow as an adventurer in order to bring love and peace to the world. She may not be chasing after Sonic anymore, but he's still number one in her heart. While Sonic is his bitter enemy, Dr. Eggman can't help but respect his incredible skill and spirit. Likewise, Sonic genuinely respects the Doctor's tenacity, although he wishes he'd use his genius for good. Oh gosh, yeah, and all this is not even really getting into the IDW comics. I'd be here all day. It stands to reason, though, that if IDW is canon to the games, then nothing too exciting can really happen in these books, because then the game world would have to account for it. Although they are not restricted by the woes of game design, these are effectively destined to be the filler stories between notable game releases. The most story that can be told will be with its own characters, only cementing an OC stigma. Likewise, the games aren't going to organically follow up on the events of IDW because it's run on a completely separate schedule that doesn't even apply globally. On top of this, it's no secret that major restrictions are still placed on certain characters to keep them on brand, avoiding any of the risk that might come from progressing them to a point of no return. So although there's some much desired control in recent years, it's all for the purpose of bringing Sonic to a position of safety, of stagnation. Embracing new interpretations like other multimedia properties is not a priority, though fans are still free to do it themselves. The stories told with these characters will serve to complement or reiterate their given character Bible descriptions, and they shall continue to act as avatars, much the same as Mario and friends. The natural endpoint of the meta era, so to speak, is that the appeal of Sonic relies on knowledge of the property, and when it's been that way for so long, one begins to ask if stories were ever a focus in Sonic, if there was ever anything more to achieve here. Is it not enough that a character is trending on Twitter for an out-of-pocket or wholesome interaction? Sometimes all we need is for someone to save a thing, or for us to feel seen in any capacity. Sure, authors don't really have the freedom nor incentive to take things to new heights, but they can respond to fandom discourse in the media we partake in, creating its own kind of story. And that's great. I believe an era would be best defined by its identity, and I just don't see a renaissance here, especially when it's been proven before that such a thing could be most temporary. What I do see is complacency with what is, a checkered history with iconography that people recognize enough to keep alive, unstoppable for generations. I am not going to say that this means Sonic stories can never be good. That would be dealing in absolutes. A perfect example would be the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, a little game filled to the brim with charming, witty, and funny writing that understands exactly what I like about all these characters. It's this absolutely bonkers concept that still somehow feels in line with the Sonic mythos I came to love. There's no doubt in my mind that this doofy mystery train adventure is canon because there's just so much heart put into it. Elements of the past are included to a degree that doesn't feel patronizing, a few new characters exist to keep you guessing, and we see some existing characters interact in ways that they never have before. There are genuine twists and turns that kept me engaged when it could have just settled for being a big ol' meme, which ensures that it can stand the test of time instead of dating itself as an April Fool's joke. It rocks. But the problem is that this is the extent I think Sonic stories can reach now. I don't believe they'll ever be more than a cute thing in isolation. It can't really go anywhere, because as an established universe, it's in shambles. Will I be excited to see the rumblings of how Eggman treats Sage compared to Orbot and Cubot? No. Will characters like Silver and Blaze ever meaningfully evolve? No. Is Tails ever going to be anything more than Gadget Boy? No, so I don't know why it's even poked at. All of this could very well have changed with Frontiers even after the wasted potential of Forces, so that's why it matters to me. Good talent will always be there to pick up the slack for Sonic. Of this I have no doubt. But the franchise seems to be trapped in everlasting safety, constantly focusing on trees and not the forest. It's almost like there's an acceptance that the rest of the industry has just moved on, and so maintaining the status quo is the best way to keep the dedicated fanbase Sonic has. The way it seeks to compete shall be by brute force or not at all, rather than pushing the hedgehog to his limit. Though the irony is that the only limit is the one they place on themselves. But wait a minute. Right. I made this entire thing in correlation to the Final Horizon update. It seemed to promise a new ending after the shit show that was the base games, featuring other playable characters and more. That's right, they're Kingdom Hearts 3 reminding this bitch. But unlike that disconnected episode, which doesn't actually fix the boring game you need to play first, I'll go ahead and talk about this one. Because I just have a soft spot for my Sonic fans. Maybe there's one last hope. Does another story improve the narrative of Sonic Frontiers and instill more faith in me for the Hedgehog's future? No. It somehow makes it even worse. So the first problem arises when you realize that this alternate, likely canon ending is set at the beginning of Uranos Island and not Rhea. I just kind of figured that if Sonic's friends were playable, we would, fix that whole friendship circle nonsense. It seemed pretty obvious to me that they just ran out of time to make a real end-of-the-world segment like you would expect, which would have been the most direct way to show that Sonic's friends are his power. People get really mad at me when I say that I like Sonic 06 more than this game, but I stand by it because of stuff like this. Yeah, that game sucks, but it's more of an experience than this global playtest. Am I wrong? Anyway, so that still happens, but then Sage comes up to Sonic and is like, wait, I've got a better idea. She then says that she can apparently reverse the corporeal sacrifice Sonic's friends just made so that they can help him gather the Chaos Emeralds. She can also stabilize his condition while they do so, allowing him to unlock a higher power in the process. Okay, sure, whoopsies, didn't think to mention that before. Yoink! Hey, hold on, how come Sonic can touch his friends now, even though they're still ghosty? Whatever, who cares? I'm sure there'll be an explanation in some random YouTube diary or I don't know. Now, this may be the super climactic final chapter for real this time, but make no mistake, the signature Frontiers writing style is here to stay. The very first cutscene just can't help itself. It contains not one, not two, but 3 incredibly forced Sonic the Hedgehog references, all spaced out with Kingdom Hearts level pauses so that you can spew cherry Kool-Aid all over your screen.
Please, no tedious speeches about the superpower of teamwork.
I like that plan. Let's do it to it. Please, I live for time trials. Let's go already.
Goodness gracious, it's become a parody of itself. Actually, that's a pretty apt summation of this new ending as a whole. You might think it would improve the areas where the game's story was criticized, but oh no, it just doubles down on it, man. You want more referential dialogue, complete with song lyrics? We got 'em now. Do you want more explain writing for questions you never even asked? Well, we got more of that too. Did you know that Big the Cat isn't actually in this game and is a mere figment of Sonic's recollection? Even though the kind of funny joke before was that he miraculously ended up in cyberspace for some unexplained reason? Well, now you know. Did you know that the stacks of rocks on the islands are actually leftovers from a cultural game that the ancients played? Good thing those aren't graves you're crashing into like fans theorized. Did you know that not only are the reused level layouts digital reconstructions of Sonic's memories, but the random blocks and rails are too? It's proximity based. Sage can't even see the pop-in. But the Coco are standing on the memory platforms? What? But let's not forget the most pressing question of all. What on earth does zap mean? Well, mateys, we've got our answer in some obscure side interaction. It means nothing conclusively. It apparently seems to represent a god that the ancients believed in and that Sage believes is still out there. So, in other words, make your own answer because this was a marketing teaser blown way out of proportion. Well, points for subtlety, I guess. Ooh, boy, let's go talk to Amy now that she's properly joined the party. Get some good chemistry in here.
I'm not just a damsel in distress anymore.
I'm sorry. It's just... this was my big moment to prove myself. But I don't think I can do it.
This is good. This is really good, Tails. Wow.
But don't worry, I'll take care of it with my fists. If anything stands between me and the emeralds, I'll smash it with my fists. Stop ordering me around, or I'll use my fists on you.
Jesus. You know, playing this update that we all waited in bated breath for, I really had to question if I was just wasting my time on something clearly made for little tykes. Is this salvation? A sign from on high? Oh, thank God. All the most noteworthy Final Horizon material to comment on has to do with its honestly atrocious game design. Yes! There's not a whole lot more to add when it comes to another story's story. It's more Frontiers, baby. But I did say it makes the ending worse, and yeah, I'm not kidding around. Despite the direct assistance by Sonic's friends and Eggman, the finale still finds a way to drop the ball, and does so in a way that I could not have foreseen. So, okay, I thought this was like a given, right? We're gonna have this super cool additional fight where the end turns into some demonic monstrosity, the moon acting as its shell. Sonic's gonna need to go Super Saiyan 2, or perhaps further beyond, and even then, he's gonna need some help. So it would follow that in addition to Sage piloting Supreme, Sonic's friends would take up the mantle of the other Titan pilots. After all, this update showed us the process of these similar personalities passing the baton to our young heroes. In this game overtly filled with anime tropes, would it not be the coolest thing to have a giant multi-man mecha battle up in space? I thought that was the whole point of this text blurb at some point in development. Yeah? Well, instead of getting that, we got to play in the McDonald's play place for a few hours, and then fight a version of Supreme that blocks the camera with trees! This is the new final boss. No additional context about the end is given, and in fact, its monologue is cut, so there's even less. Sage does not take control of the mech anymore, Sonic's friends are here to make a singular shield, and all Super Sonic 2 does is make you perfect parry attacks, which isn't even the integral mechanic of the boss fight. But wait, to be fair, Eggman gets to do something now. Sonic decides that to put an end to the end, he's gonna have to frontier all over the place. So Eggman fires him out of a cannon while he has a Sonic Colors Ultimate Seizure, and we get this. Take a good look at it, it's all you get. One of those forms that's so powerful it can't appear for more than 5 seconds. Curses. Successful in his risky bout, Super Sonic lies adrift, looking like he came out of the Doomsday Zone fan animation from 2010. Rest in peace. And then the ending plays out basically the same, only Sage doesn't die, so there's not even a temporary moment there. It's just retconned entirely, bro. So, you know, if you were touched by the bittersweet climax of the Eggman and Sage storyline, just, well, your original ending still exists. She comes back regardless, and everyone goes to have lunch, so we are all happy end. But hey, I mean, Sonic's not insensitive anymore. Yeah, that's it. No, really, there's no new post-credit scene or anything. It's just that poignant of an ending. You know, man, I don't have the whole funny reaction punchline for this. We're just gonna, I'm done. I'm done. Frontiers, guys. I mean, what more can I say? It's a game that so desperately wants all the credit, but just won't put in all the work. It's a pot of ideas meant to elicit a reaction from people rather than being art for its own sake. Although its updates were appreciated, a question arises when things like the spin dash or momentum are concepts that fans have to climb virtual Twitter walls for. At almost every turn, there's just something that feels aimless about it, like there's no intrinsic goal here. In every sense of the word, Sonic Frontiers is the state of Sonic given material form. Many like it because it shows progress beyond forces. Many like it because it offers glimpses of what the future may hold. So much of this game hinges on the idea that you are thrilled to immerse yourself as Sonic in the open zone. Though it may be new territory in an official capacity, the potential is largely showcased by common sense regarding Sonic in an open world, not anything that Frontiers specifically accomplishes. I apply all these sentiments to the game's narrative as well. There's a nugget of excitement here with it vaguely resembling the source material, but I just don't think it has anything more to say than that. And really, I don't think this is a secret. I think the game is content with short-term gratification. As I always ask when a new Sonic game comes out, what will the legacy of this title be in 10 years? That you had to be there to appreciate the impact it had at the time? What does it mean for those outside of the fanbase? You know my deal with this one by now, I hope, but there's something else I gotta get off my chest before I go. A lot of people were really upset to find out that I did not enjoy this game. Not even in a mean-spirited sense. There have been people who watched and enjoyed my previous Sonic videos who really thought that this was the game for me. It was disappointing to find out that despite the game having mostly 3D movement, tighter controls, a serious story, references to my favorite games, dank AMVs, and eventually multiple playable characters, I still was not a fan of it. Some were less kind, saying that I'm an old hack who will never be pleased, even when I have been given the game that I wanted. And if you believe these things, then you just never knew me at all. Certainly not from content that I made 4 years ago. I don't care about the adventure games being paid tribute. I don't care how dark or edgy the game is. I don't care what anime the game looks like. And I certainly don't care about addressing the sins of Sonic Forces. None of these dumb talking points were ever what I wanted people to focus on when I shared my beliefs, because what I care about is a game having heart, integrity, and feeling. Something that can shake me to the core and provide an unforgettable experience that these surface-level checkboxes could never quantify. There's no one thing that made Sonic work for me aside from conviction. And if Frontiers is that for you, then I'm not out to get you or what you enjoy. Me, though, I don't think there are any more excuses. People are insisting that this game just didn't have enough dev time, and that if we use 5 years as the starting point, then next time we can see Sonic reach its potential. And if that's the case, then there will be children who were born during the development of Sonic Forces who are 14 years old by the time we finally, maybe, hypothetically, get an unconditionally good Sonic Team game again. Outrageous. I made this video because I want the other side to be heard as a new generation begins, as our memories fade and our expectations are reset. I know there are others who feel this same way, and I think it's important for those voices to not seem so retroactive this time. If Sonic is to continue responding to itself or to its fans, framing that alone as content, then it's destined to repeat the fundamental mistakes that made it this way. But hey, I can talk all day about what I prefer in my Sonic stories, so why don't I just show you what I would want? To thank you all for your meaningful support, I am creating a conceptual adaptation of Sonic Forces, which will include fun pictures by yours truly. If you want to closely follow my progress as I finish it up, you can do so by joining my Patreon. Speaking of which, I want to give a big cyber thank you to my patrons, namely Zapdog, Snackugo, Mama Luigi 9000 Turner, Moneyman Jr., A Red Bomb, Mario Freak, and the rest of these fine folks. We're only at the beginning of this one-way meme.